Subscribe to the Metatron channel.
Wow.
We got this video called Every Historical Misconception Debunked in 10 Minutes. Now, you know me, I love debunking, but this channel has got 1 million, yeah, over 1 million subs. The Paint Explainer. How about we check this out and see how well they do? Number one, what is number one?
Cleopatra wasn't genetically Egyptian. She was of Macedonian Greek descent, a member of the Ptolemaic dynasty established by one of Alexander the Great's generals.
Based. We are starting based. Now, given that was 8 seconds though. So, I mean, yeah, but then again, he's trying to keep it short, isn't it? Based. So this guy did not have anything to do with grammar. It's a good start. I mean, at the end of the day, it's so silly. Yeah, Ptolemy. I mean, the Ptolemaic dynasty inbred. They inbred to keep everything quote-unquote pure. Cleopatra was Greek, all right?
Roman Emperor Nero did not fiddle while Rome was burning. This story likely originates from later historians to depict Nero's alleged neglect and misrule. Nero may have played the lyre, but it's uncertain if he did so during the fire. The Trojan...
Okay, Trojan warrior. This is kind of fun, actually. I like this. So, yeah, Nero. The situation with Nero is interesting. When we read the whole scenario when it comes to Nero and the burning of Rome and how he blamed it on the Christians, it's mentioned in Tacitus and Suetonius. Tacitus is the one specifically who talks about the scapegoating of the Christians. Did he play the lyre? I mean, it's difficult to know, really. I would also say I don't necessarily believe that detail, because it's true that posthumously a lot of Romans did that, particularly when it comes to anti-imperial propaganda. I think it's Dr. Shaw who's the one who also mentions a few things like that. I'll have to double check that. But yeah, do also remember that it's under Nero's reign that both Peter and Paul die. So yeah, Nero was a pretty brutal emperor. I tend to believe that maybe it's been exaggerated a little bit, but it wasn't all there. It wasn't all there in the head. It was like a freaking psychopath. I do believe that. If we could do a psychological analysis, which I did do a little bit, by the way, on a video of mine already, but if we did a deep psychological analysis of both Nero, but even Claudius. Yeah, these guys, or Elagabalus is another one. These guys were not all there. But yeah, there is a certain element of propaganda in there for sure, so it's difficult to believe, but was he really playing that? I wonder why they focus on that specific detail, but cool.
Nero may have played the lyre, but it's uncertain if he did so during the fire.
Okay.
The Trojan horse did not exist. It is merely a story from Greek mythology made to exaggerate and mystify Greece's win over Troy, as there is no archaeological evidence to confirm its historical existence. Christopher...
Okay, fair, I guess. The only thing I wish to add to this is that, yeah, sure, we don't have archaeological evidence for it, given it is wood and organic materials, so this is, but regardless, I understand. Yeah, it's very probable that it was symbolic. But symbolic not necessarily for what he said, so listen to him again.
It is merely a story from Greek mythology made to exaggerate and mystify Greece's win over...
No, I disagree with the channel here, because first, I do believe that the War of Troy did happen. I've already expanded on this on several videos, so I'm not going to go into the details for it, but for the sake of argument, to give gramping that one for a moment. Let's say that the Trojan War did happen. Then it's not necessarily from Greek mythology. A lot of what we read in the ancient texts, in this case, it's a mix. It's exaggerated, of course. There is mythology into it, but there definitely were conflicts between Greek city-states, so the Greeks, and for example, the Hittites or people in the Anatolian Peninsula. And so, yeah, there is always a little bit of truth into it. Now, I believe that the siege of Troy happened in the modern city of Wilusa, which is in Turkey. But yeah, we could discuss that. That could be debated. You could tell me, you believe that because of this? And for example, there are several mentions in Hittite archives in the capital of the Hittite Empire that make it sound like this actually happened. But let's say for a moment you don't believe that. I can respect that. But regardless of whether the siege of Troy happened or not, the Trojan horse is symbolic. Not necessarily to say, oh, look, they were stupid because we made them think that this was a gift and then we go on. It's not that. It's more subtle than that. I think the Trojan horse could be a connection and a representation with the god Poseidon, Poseidonas in Greek, so Neptune, Neptunus, because Neptune is both the god of the seas, and Poseidonas in the later iterations, and of earthquakes. And one of the symbols is the horse. It is one of the symbols, and this is something that would have been obvious to people of the period, even though it's not so obvious to us. You know how we spoke about Lord of the Rings a minute ago? Well, there is some symbolism that we would all understand. Oh, someone has got pointy ear. That's an elf. I don't need to explain it to you. So likewise, this is something that it's something that could be lost, for example, in 2,000 years or in 3,000 years. And people see someone with pointy ears and they're like, well, do they have a malfunction? Do they have a malformation? No, to people of our period, it's obvious. That's an elf. So likewise, the horse is a representation of earthquakes. Earthquakes can be connected to Poseidon. And the city of Wilusa, which is what we believe to be historic Troy, has some sections that absolutely demonstrate that there was an earthquake and that the earthquake made some of the high wall fortification crumble. So, in my opinion, this is just an opinion, an educated guess, but in my opinion, as you look at it from period sources, the association between the fall of Troy and the horse has a religious connotation to it, and something that people could have understood. The horse, earthquake, Poseidon, Neptune, the god is on the side of the Greeks. He destroyed the walls, they fall, and that's symbolic to it. This is how I see it. Next.
Over Troy, as there is no archaeological evidence to confirm its historical existence. Christopher Columbus did not discover America. Long before Columbus arrived in 1492, numerous indigenous civilizations, such as the Aztec, Maya, Inca, and various tribes across North and South America, had been living on the continents for thousands of years.
Right.
These indigenous peoples discovered, explored, and developed these lands long before any Europeans arrived. Furthermore, Viking explorers, led by Leif Erikson, established a settlement called Vinland in what is now Newfoundland, Canada, around the year 1000, nearly 500 years before Columbus.
Okay, let's unpack this a little bit. When we say the discovery of America, obviously is from the point of view of medieval Europeans, because they didn't know at that point that America was a thing. Technically, if we want to be pedantic, we could say that it's a rediscovery because of what he just mentioned with the Vikings, but I wouldn't be so sure, because if you think about it, where the Vikings went and where Columbus went are so far distant that even though it's technically the same continent, the two things are still relatively unrelated. From the point of view of the Europeans, Columbus did discover America, but clearly there were, from the point of view of human history, then no, because if you want to look at it from the perspective of the native populations like the Maya further down south, but whatever, the Aztec, Mexica and whatnot, then clearly it's not like they discovered themselves. Yeah, makes sense. I won't be too pedantic about it, but I do think that he did discover it from the point of view of medieval Europe. So in that context, it's not wrong to say it. But from the human history, then fine. I'm fine with that.
The Middle Ages were not an age of stagnation in human development.
Yeah.
This age saw the establishment of the first universities in Europe, such as the University of Bologna,
Oxford.
the University of Paris, and the University of Oxford, as well as great advancements in the fields of medicine and math in the Muslim and Indian world. Newton did not come up with his theory of
Okay, yeah, that's right. He's correct. Absolutely. Newton, what about Newton?
in the fields of medicine and math in the Muslim and Indian world. Newton did not come up with his theory of gravity when an apple fell down from a tree and hit his head. Newton did see an apple fall, which led him to consider why objects fall towards the earth, but there is
I've never heard of that. Have you ever heard of Newton being hit in the head with an apple? Let me know in chat, because I've only heard this one. So the Newton, yeah, this was kind of a moment of an intuition when he saw the apple fall, which then kind of began a whole series of events in his head that led to the discoveries that he did.
There's no evidence it hit him. George Washington did not cut down a cherry tree during his youth. The cherry tree is an anecdote meant to illustrate Washington's honesty and integrity. It served as a moral example for young Americans, emphasizing the value of truthfulness. Benjamin Franklin
I had no idea. I think this is a little outside my area of expertise, but so I can't tell you if he's right or wrong about that. Wouldn't it be funny, though, if the story's false about, who was it? Was it Washington? Would it be funny if the story's false, but he actually did cut one just for fun? I mean, the story would still be false, but it would be real that he did cut it. Well, who knows? I haven't got a clue, guys. You say he's right? Very nice. Okay. Well, so far, the channel is good. Benjamin Franklin, what did he not discover? What did he not discover?
Did not discover electricity, as ancient Greeks had already observed static electricity, and by the 17th and early 18th centuries, European scientists like William Gilbert, Otto von Guericke, and Stephen Gray had made significant discoveries about electricity. Ninjas did not wear...
Oh, ninja. Personally, I'm not sure how much I would... That's the only thing I'm going to say about this. I don't know how much I would consider the ancient Greek understanding of the idea of static electricity to really be considered as, well, they knew about electricity. It's a bit of a stretch. You know what this reminds me of? It reminds me of Quintilius Varro in ancient Rome, because he did talk about, there's this book, it's written in Latin, of course, where Varro is telling people where to settle. And he's telling you specifically, you should not build any settlement, homesteads. He said, do not build homesteads near swamps. And the reason why he tells you not to do that is not because it's not clean, because that would be obvious. No, he says specifically because near swamps, you have minuscule animals that are invisible to the eye, that enter the body through your mouth and nose and cause all sorts of diseases. This is a fascinating thing to read from someone in ancient Rome, imperial Rome. And it's germ theory. Now, would I say that he discovered germ theory? He didn't have a clue. However, it kind of tells you that, and this tells you that people, when they see a result, they can still somehow, even when they don't have access to modern science, retro-engineer the cause. And so they are creating a causal link. He doesn't know about germs, just like the ancient Greeks didn't really understand electricity the way we do. It's still fascinating, though. But again, I wouldn't say that Quintilius Varro, discovered germ theory, right? But it is still intriguing. When I read that the first time, I had to go read it in Latin, because I'm like, oh, this is insane. So I read it in Latin, and we confirmed it, and I'm like, yeah, he's saying invisible to the eye, minuscule creatures. He even says animals, he calls them, I think, bestias. Maybe he also uses that term. I'll have to review it.
Ninjas did not wear all black outfits as they are portrayed in modern media. Historical ninjas typically dressed to blend into their surroundings, wearing practical and close-fitting clothing appropriate to their environment and missions. Ancient Greek and Roman...
Okay, yeah, he's right about the ninja, or shinobi, if you want. This outfit is not a thing. The sword, we can talk about the sword a little bit, because swords that had a square tsuba and were shorter and straight are present in iconographies, just that they're not ninja sword, because that would be absolutely moronic. If you have a sword that tells everyone you're a spy, I guess your intelligence is not going to work very well, is it? Because anyone is going to look at that and be like, oh, that's a ninja. So, of course, that's not a thing. But the sword exists, and it's present in iconography. It's possible that it was like a munition grade, low-level sword that was given to Ashigaru, half samurai, low-level samurai. And, of course, if one of these ended up being part of intelligence, or if actual spy, an actual shinobi no mono in feudal Japan was, let's put it this way, putting up the disguise of a low-level samurai, then it is, in fact, historically plausible to think that a ninja historically has used a sword like this. That's possible. But the little thing that he's wearing here, no, it's not a thing. In fact, not really. The reality is that they would dress to blend, like he's saying. So you could dress like a soldier. You could be part of the military, so you would be wearing your bushi clothes, your armor. You could imagine that you're a ninja in feudal Japan who is a master linguist, and he understands Chinese, Korean, classical Chinese. He understands several regional varieties of Japanese, and then he's infiltrating, right? He could dress up as a monk, a Buddhist monk, just to hear, like to listen to what they're saying, because they don't know. It's a skill that it's in his head. So in that scenario, he would dress to blend. He's absolutely right.
Media. Historical ninjas typically dress to blend into their surroundings, wearing practical and close-fitting clothing appropriate to their environment and missions. Ancient Greek and Roman statues were not all white.
Yes.
They were originally painted in vibrant colors.
I love that he chose the one representation of this statue that is white, as well. It still keeps the super white skin, like literally. But yeah, he's correct. He is correct. Absolutely. Statues in period were all painted. And let's see what else he says. But this is kind of funny, though. Yeah, this is Snow White, guys. This is Snow White.
Practice known as polychromy. Traces of paint found on many sculptures reveal that these statues were not the white marble we see today, but colored to enhance their lifelike appearance.
Okay, this is a better, absolutely, yeah. Very true. They even painted the eyes. The ones that are usually painted are the ones that are in fact marble. If statues that are bronze, as far as I understand, and I guess Mr. Terry will correct me, but as far as I understand, the bronze statues, they were not usually painted. And when they wanted to represent polychromy within those type of representation, statuary representation, they would just use different constituents in the different types of bronze, as to, for example, have the helmet look like a shiny, dull gold, and then maybe the face is going to have a different chromatic variation because you're using essentially different types of bronze. I think that's how they achieved polychromatic variation in bronze statues. But when it comes to marble, painted 100%. Part 2 coming soon. Thank you, you muppet.